Welcome once again to StreetLevelAmerica.com, USA Heartbeat, and Operation Eagle's Wings. We honor those who honorably serve and leave no one behind. We are once again honored to have Buck Sergeant Roberson with us. We've had him on the show once or twice before. He's written several books. One about his experiences in
Thailand.
Thailand. And I'm very impressed by the book because it goes into a lot of detail. One of the things I absolutely love about that book, if we could just push that book right now, is we don't want to forget any person lost in the service to our country in the Vietnam War or any other war. And Sergeant Roberson has went into great detail on mentioning specific dates, specific even aircraft numbers, and men that lost their lives in Vietnam and Cambodia. And I love that because we need to remember these names. And he's put it in book form. If you want to know what happened in in the Vietnam conflict, war, whatever you want to call it, he's got some boots on the ground expertise about what happened. So the book will be talking about that as well. So once again, welcome to Operation Eagle's Wings, Sergeant Roberson. One of the things we want to talk about is patriotism. Now, one of the concerns I have for America is that we are, I don't want to say losing our patriotism, but we need to make sure that our young people understand patriotism. Let me share with you an experience that happened with me today. There was a young 20-year-old girl that went into a store, and we were talking about a key, and she wanted to get a key cut, and she wanted to get a key cut with an American flag on it. She says, I want an eagle and I want an American flag. And I said, I'm really happy to hear that. And she turned to her friend, she pointed at me and says, he gets it. Now, we need to have more young people say that and have that kind of attitude. Don't you agree?
Well, I I think it's great. It's very encouraging when you can run across some of the people that seem to be very patriotic. Like I said before, I've really thought that it's kind of half and half. Some people
Mm-hmm.
seem to be very, very appreciative of their country and of the military, and uh, quite a few people are not so interested. But I do see your podcast where you're wearing your uh, red, white, and blue colors. I see those quite a bit um, uh, on YouTube. Oh yeah, I like the hat too. It uh, I'm pretty bald headed. If I take my cap off, I'd need a hat, but on a bright sunny day. But I have seen that you and I appreciate the positive, patriotic type comments that you're making, Dave. I think every little bit really helps.
Yeah, and we are just one of the chorus of voices that love this country. And I've said this 1,000 times before. People, you know what I'm going to say, and you're probably getting sick and tired of it. Presidential debate. Woman from South America said, "The Americans, you've got to fix this. If not America, where? Where are we going to go? Where are we going to go where freedoms are ingrained into our foundational systems? And we can't vote this out. We can't let it go away. We have to get patriotic about America because if not here, buddy, where are we going to go?" So I appreciate your comments on the show that we do because we just want to be one of many voices out there saying we love this country and here's the reasons why. One of the reasons we love this country is for people like Sergeant Roberson who have put their lives on the line many times and said we're going to fight for freedom. The question I have for you is how do you feel when you see um, and I know you saw that you this kind of in some ways is kind of what you were happening to you when you came back from Vietnam is people were disrespecting the flag, people were disrespecting America, and it's kind of like deja vu. It's kind of happening all over again. What's going through your mind when you're seeing uh, socialists being voted into office and people basically saying, you know, this American thing, it's not that big of a deal anyway. Even our some of our elected officials, and my heart just breaks for veterans who have watched their buddies die and who have fought for the freedom of this country to have us just flitter it away. Uh, I'm just kind of interested in your how you feel about it. I'm going to shut up here a little bit and let you kind of talk.
Well, it bothers me. It actually worries me. It from a logical standpoint, I think surely, it can't catch on, but obviously in places it has caught on, and it's spread a little bit, and kind of reminds me almost, in a way, it's kind of a, a cancer in my opinion, that the way it just kind of metastasizes and kind of continues to spread. But uh, I just I hope that since it is our anniversary and we're having several celebrations, and I'm hoping that that will reinforce and cause some people to actually get off their butts and go out and vote. I really think that it's really important. But of course, I reinforce before that only citizens should vote and people should only be
Yeah.
allowed to vote one time. And I really, I pointed out some of the illogical stuff before, about the mask and stuff like that. Well, now it has to do with IDs. They don't want us to have an ID to vote, but those that's opposing us having voter ID are requiring IDs for some of their own functions and their own funds. Uh, 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 that to me, some of their own events, and that again, it's contradictory, and which to me, I still believe that it all boils down to just trying to create a lot of chaos, a lot of dust, and hoping that some of us will just get tired and forget. And but then I'm always encouraged because there's this one guy named Dave Adams is out there just about every day on YouTube with his uh, uh, red, white, and blue hat on, and and oh yeah, you got your football too. Yeah, I like that. And but I do think that it's important. I fly my flag, my American flag at my front door. I don't fly it all the time. I do not fly it during rainy weather. I don't fly it at night. But when it's especially when it's Veterans Day, 4th of July, Memorial Day, I make a big point, if at all possible, to fly that flag. And and I have one immediate neighbor who has had her husband died a few years ago. He was a Navy veteran, and she flies their flag 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we've got a few here and there that are their heart is red, white, and blue. And but yeah, I when I see a lot of this stuff, I'm hoping and praying that it really uh, doesn't turn out to be quite as successful for some of those people with the socialism ideas and stuff, or the anti-American ideas, because from any kind of a logic standpoint, it makes no sense. None of it. I mean, it's almost insane on some of it, but you see a lot of I don't know if you call it enthusiasm, but a lot of energy anyway, of especially young people that's bought into this kind of stuff and is supporting those uh, that kind of thing. But I hope that what we're seeing is a magnified uh, presentation that it's getting more attention than it really deserves. But I think it deserves serious attention, real serious attention. So yeah, it
Mhm.
to me it is all about patriotism.
Oh yeah, and sometimes when there's some, sometimes you wonder. What I call them is the vocal minority. The vocal minority is very loud, and you really don't know what the masses feel. What does Main Street America feel? Now, when we're watching the outcome of several elections, we see America's kind of pretty divided. I'm concerned that so many socialist candidates are winning for office. But I think when we get into the midterms and the general election, what I'm praying for, and one thing we talk about is, folks, let's just take a look at common sense. And Sergeant Roberson was talking about common sense. Let's just take a minute, pause, and say, let's think this thing through. And I think Main Street America, who I call um, the silent majority, they don't make the news. They're not out there making protests or whatever. They're just sitting home. They're just going to work, and they're seeing what's going on, and I don't think they like it. And I think when we come to the polls, the midterms, and the general election, they're gonna we're gonna see this Democrat socialism movement fail, and I think we're going to see it fail in a big way. But those of us who love this country cannot take it for granted, and we have to get very politically active and very active in our government. To some people, being active in politics is a bad thing. They'd sooner clean out the sewer than get involved in politics. But the problem with that is this: the people that win races and the people that are appointed into office make the laws that all of us have to live by. And so, for those of us, and I have some pastor friends that are saying we need from the pulpit get very, very actively involved as Christians in the government of our nation. We can't just abdicate our role, because if we do, somebody else will take over. They will have an anti Christian view, and all of a sudden we'll turn around and say, okay, what do we do now? The Bible says we're supposed to follow the laws of the land, but if we abdicated our role as responsible Christian citizens participating in democracy, and we allow an anti godly voice making our laws, then we're going to have to change it. We, as pastors, I'm a pastor, we have to get very involved in politics. Now, I know with the 501c3, churches are not supposed to actually endorsed from the pulpit. The Supreme Court in the recent decision has said that has given them some leeway to do that and to speak on behalf and in favor of Christian principles. And I think we're seeing some decisions at the Supreme Court go in a way that is going to allow common sense conservatism to have a voice, especially from the pulpit. To pastors, I would say this: get a spine, get a backbone, read your Bible, pray about it, understand that we need to be, I'm going to say, a force to be reckoned with, because we need to act as godly citizens in America, and we need to have our influence felt in this way, and that we want America to be blessed by God. I believe that America has become the industrial powerhouse, at least used to be, but the economic powerhouse and the military powerhouse we are, because I believe we have been blessed by God. I think God could take that blessing away, and I don't want to see that happen. I think America needs to continue to be a Christian nation. One of the things we're doing in Classroom USA, we are doing we've done two long sessions. The other one was 2.5 hours long, where we talk about the Christian roots of American government, and that the founding fathers, yes, indeed, were Christians, and that our American law governance is formed specifically on Judeo Christian standards, and we need to get back to that. One of the things that we try to do is talk to these young people and reason with them and put the facts out there. on why America is not evil, why America, the way we have government here securing our individual civil rights, is really the way to go and is really how we as a society need to love one another and treat another with respect. We need to have a law abiding society. We need to honor law enforcement. We need to have laws in society. We need to understand that there are some people out there that simply don't want to or can't, because of mental problems, obey the laws. There needs to be consequences for that. If we don't have consequences for them, we will have anarchy in society. So we need to have common sense come again and be in play. We need to have the the silent majority really get involved in American politics, and we need to get involved now, or we could lose our country. I don't think we will, because I don't think we'll lose our country, because I think the silent majority is going to get active. They're going to speak up. And one of the reasons they will is because they have seen the sacrifices from people like Sergeant Roberson. They've seen the caskets come back from overseas, and they realize that these American young people have died for the cause of freedom. Um, and when my example of the young girl saying, "I want to fly, I want a key, house key with an eagle on it, because I believe in America. I believe in American values." We have to be involved in America. We have to be involved in politics, because we want to secure the blessings of posterity for ourselves and future generations. We have to secure government. Was it Benjamin Franklin who said, "Yeah, you can have a republic as long as you can keep it"? So we need to no longer be lazy citizens. We have to really, really get involved in keeping constitutional government in force in America, and not let socialism have its way. And we spent a lot of time talking about that. But we also want to spend time talking about veterans, how they feel, what they're dealing with, and how they feel about patriotism. And that's part of why we wanted to have the show tonight. I kind of went on a diatribe here and just kind of went off on my tangent, but I feel strongly about it. I know you do as well. What are your thoughts?
Well, to me, the the little bit of uh, religious beliefs that we have had and been raised with, and our appreciation of the military, seem to be a little bit of a parallel. It's like I uh, said before, my grandfather actually helped raise me on his farm, and my grandmother, of course, was a second mother uh, to me. But my grandmother and my grandfather read the Bible every single evening before they went to bed. Now, they didn't push their stuff on other people, they never gave other people a hard time about it. They just simply set an example. They went about quietly doing what they was taught to do. Now, they had 10 children, and they had 6 boys and 4 girls. 4 of those boys served in World War II. 2 of them were in the Navy in the Pacific. The others were in the Europe fighting the Germans. And one of their sons, one of my uncles, actually got severely wounded uh, by a German machine gun. Well, he didn't die. He later on became a preacher. You know, it's pretty hard not to believe in God if you're in a foxhole. You've heard that many, many, many times. But that I've really uh, had a good example of my uncle serving, and I've mentioned before that one of them is actually World War II, the Korean War, and Vietnam, and and I had um, they had two son-in-laws that served in World War II. So the family pretty much they contributed. They did their part.
Yeah.
It had an influence on me on how I approached my service. So to me, and of course, one of the things that I did, my grandmother had enough influence on my life that the very first book that I ever wrote, it was a smaller book than the others, but was about my grandmother, and I, I really uh, held her up as an example of, and she endured a lot having all of those sons and son-in-laws in the service during the war, and they were in the middle of it. I mean, it was serious business.
Yeah.
And they served a long time. It wasn't just 1 year and then they're back home. That didn't work that way back then. But uh, now I didn't see and hear a lot of you know flag waving or whatever. But when it came Memorial Day, they obviously celebrated. They went and decorated graves and stuff, and uh, it was uh, just seemed like the right thing to do. But the big difference was when I uh, was a child and a teenager. Uh, I didn't see all the negative except of the Vietnam War. Then after I got into the Vietnam War, of course, it that turned pretty negative. But it even then, though, it didn't seem like it still didn't. It was specialized to the Vietnam War. The anti stuff was. Now it seems like it's spread to be more anti America, anti U.S. government. It's a much bigger deal uh, to me. But I do think that one of the ways that you offset a lot of it is with family. It's partly the way you're raised, and and family can offset some of the what I consider bad stuff that kids learn in school and stuff. It really does make a difference, and when you're young and impressionable, I think it makes a lot more difference. The difference in people is age. I see so much uh, as far as the numbers go. It seems to be very young, very pretty much college educated kind of at age group. Whether or not they're actually in college or not, I don't know. But no, I just feel like that we really ought to look back, look at history, look at what people did sacrifice, and realize what it really did cost. And sometimes things are worth what you have to pay for it. You know, and some of our people have paid a lot, a very big price, and that I think that's one of the biggest difference between what a lot of people are proposing. They're not figuring on paying anything. It's just something they think they can demand and be entitled to without it costing anything, no effort, no willingness to contribute or whatever. But I guess we'll see. The proof's in the pudding, they say, and
Yeah.
we'll see it that this next couple of months is going to make a big difference, I'm afraid.
I think so too. I think you make some very good points there. In the oh, the computer was trying to talk to me while I'm talking to you. Um, as goes the family, so goes the nation. One of the things that we had when you and I were younger was that we had family values. We had families that raised their kids. We don't have that now, and we need to, I think, step up as a nation and make sure that our kids are mentored and maybe find some way to reach out to this younger generation and mentor them if they came out of a dysfunctional family. I know this is a big a big challenge for us to right the ship here and to give to change the attitude of 20-year-olds and even the teens as to why you should love America and why America is important. There is a saying, as goes the family, so goes the nation. And I think you hit on a real important point there, and the difference between the raising up, or my grandmother called fetching up. They had good fetching up. They were raised right. The world's greatest generation was raised right. They stood up and fought off tyranny and saved the planet from dictatorship oppression from the Axis powers in World War II. Um, and we need to make sure that, and we need to do our part to make sure that young people learn the value of citizenship, learn the value of sacrifice. I know there's a number of organizations out there trying to do it. I'll give one example: the Calvin Coolidge Medal of Honor Museum in Chattanooga, Tennessee. They have 6 different criteria about community, honor, sacrifice. And as we look up to heroes, and it's another thing, what do we call a hero today? It's not a basketball star. It's the Medal of Honor recipients and those people like Sergeant Roberson that went and served their nation. It's a tall order, and we're going to have to kind of clean house here a little bit. But we need to really do everything we can to right the ship. Now, some people will say, Dave, it's too late. It's just too big of too big of a fight, too big of a struggle. We just can't do it. And I remember a scripture. I'm a pastor, so I love to recite scripture. The Bible says nothing is impossible for those who believe in God. And so we need to right the ship, and we need to make America a Christian nation once again. And we need to get up every day, and we need to say we need to fight this fight, and we need to win in this discussion of principles and in the public marketplace when we're out there talking about ideas. And one of the things that we try to do, we spend a lot of time here trying to put programs together and products together to try to reach a generation and honor the current generation like yourself. And so that's part of why we do what we do. But we need to right the ship. And again, I want to say to people who think that we can't do this, it's gone to hell and we can't stop it. It's a freight train and it's going to run us over. And I quote the scripture again: nothing is impossible for those who believe. The Bible also says, do not weary in doing good, for in such a time you will win a reward. And we have a nation to save. And I thank you for your service. And I love the sign behind you. You did have a story to share with me about younger people. And this was your grandson was proud of you as a veteran. You want to share that story?
Do what now?
Your grandson went to school and said, "My grandfather is a veteran."
Right. It was on, this was 2 years ago. He's started the fourth grade now, but this was 2 years ago, and it was Veterans Day, and he stood up in front of his class. Hayden James said, wanted to remind everybody that, hey, today is Veterans Day, and my granddaddy was a veteran. He is a veteran. And I thought, wow, I didn't even know that he was paying much attention, that he was really that aware of it. And nobody told him to do that. He did that on his own, which I really, really appreciated. And one of the things that was interesting when his father took him down to Eglin Air Force Base a couple of weeks ago, the one thing he did, and I'm going to change hats here,
Go ahead.
at he he bought me an Air Force veteran's cap. and brought it back to me. Uh, he was real aware that that might mean something to me, and so I've got uh, uh, this cap here now is from my grandson, and the other cap was from my youngest brother. So it is kind of nice when you got a few members of the family that kind of recognizes what you've done. And but but one of the things you talk about what how I was raised or whatever. Well, when I was in elementary school, every schoolroom had an American flag in it, and every morning we said the Pledge of Allegiance to that flag.
So did we.
And when I went to church, the church up behind the pulpit had an American flag as well as the Christian flag. Uh, and you saw that every Sunday or
Yeah.
every Sunday night or whenever you went. So there was always this reminder of Christianity and patriotism. You didn't have to have one or the other, you had them both. And I think that obviously had a big effect on me. Now, I don't know, I haven't been in any schools recently, but I've never heard anybody mention that there's any kind of American flag in the classroom. I would hope there is, but I don't know that there is. And I think what you're exposed to does have an effect. You know, it's simple as that. But yeah, I was real tickled to hear and one of the things that my uh, grandson and I have this one special thing, and
Yeah.
it's when he approaches me, we salute, and then we shake hands, then we hug, and when he goes to say bye, he salutes, and I return his salute, and even if we're doing a FaceTime, if I send him a birthday gift or something, when he will do a FaceTime and thank me for it, and but when he goes to his father goes to turn it off, before he turns it off, he doesn't tell him to do this. He simply looks at the camera and salutes me, and then he turned to his father and say, "That's my granddaddy's most favorite thing for me to do." I thought
How
that
old,
was.
how old is this young man?
He's 9.5 now, but he was doing this 2 or 3 years ago. But yeah, that salute was the most favorite thing, his granddaddy's most favorite thing for him to do. So uh, anyway, but we do it all the time. It's a salute, it's a handshake, and then it's a hug. And when we go to part, it's the same thing. And and it and that's not anything that nobody reminds him, nobody tells him that, hey, be sure and do that, or whatever. He just does that on his own. And so now my books, were
Mhm.
written primarily about probably for a 14-year-old to really start appreciating them. And I think, and of course, my uh, second book, the one that's a little uh, more of my life story, is actually dedicated to my grandson. I actually did it for him pretty much.
Do you have any of those books there you can show us?
Do what now?
Do you have any of those books there that you can show us the cover?
Yeah, let me show you. Uh, Let me just start in the order. The very first book that I did. Uh, let's see if I can get this up here. Now, this is a book honoring my um, grandmother,
Right.
who helped raise me. and it's called James Remembers Grandma, and the subtitle is A Banny Hen is One of God's True Miracles. And she was a banny hen. She used to flog my granddaddy every once in a while. I mean, she just really yammer at him. But uh, but it was really interesting. That was the first one, and then it was my daughter-in-law's idea for me to write the second book that I had showed you before about uh, James Roberson, James
Yeah.
Roy Roberson,
Uh-huh.
created in 1945, born in 1946. Well, that book was written specifically for my grandson, and
Yeah.
hopefully someday, and in the and then of course the one that got me started with you
Yeah.
was the Buck Sergeant Roberson uh,
Yes.
book, and to me, uh, the universal truths that's tabulated at the end of the book, I'm hoping someday when my grandson's a little older that he will read those. It's some people call them uh, pieces of wisdom. I don't know that it's that wise, but I have summarized those, and I'm hoping that someday, when he's a little older, that he'll read those books, know a little bit more about me. And uh, of course, I'm 80 years old now, and uh, when he's of an age where really we can have some in-depth conversations, I might not be here.
Yeah.
But uh, so all of those books have something to do with, for example, my grandma book mentions and shows pictures of my uncles, and it talks about it mentions their service. It's not a lot, but it's a fairly short read. It's a kind of a half-size book, but the uh, to me the whole issue about um our 250th anniversary and stuff
Hmm.
has to
Yeah.
do with family. And I really, uh, but when I was just in elementary school, even, and we would go to the graves sometimes at some distance away, and
Yeah.
it was a real big deal. Families from all over would come, and
Oh, yeah.
we'd have dinner on the ground, and we would uh, clean up the cemetery and stuff, and
Hmm.
decorate the graves. We call it what, Decoration Day back
Yeah.
in those days, and uh, so I don't see a lot of that kind of thing uh, much anymore. But I do like the the celebrations. Of course, I love seeing the airplanes and stuff when they have the flyovers and and stuff. And I do think that it's important to take time out and actually celebrate some of the good things that we have done and that we've accomplished. And
Yeah.
it, but yeah, when I was in college, I took American history
Hmm.
and stuff. And when, of course, when I was in high school, we studied American history. We was required to take that course. Uh, it wasn't a choice. And the but if you can't even take the time out to go look at our actual history and see what's happened, you're missing out on a lot. You if you totally ignore all of it, yeah, some of it wasn't necessarily good, some of it was pretty bad, but all in all, even some of the bad turned out to be a good thing. I think it made us who we are. You know, that's one of the things that I keep talking about, all the different kind of things that happened to me over the years. And I ask people sometimes, aren't you glad I turned out to be me? Really,
Yeah,
they, these different things that happened is who I am. And I made up this one phrase: "We are who we were." You know, it's that's about as basic as you can get. You know,
I like that.
if those different things that has shaped us and molded us and different people we've come in contact with and stuff, that is the kind of thing that has made us who we are today. And oh yeah, I'd like to do over a couple of things where I could have done a little better, but uh, I'm still glad I turned out to be me, you know.
Yeah,
Even with some of my problems health wise or whatever,
sure.
I'm, I, I'm glad that I'm me. And
Yeah,
I'm glad that I'm a veteran of the United States of America. And I don't apologize a whole lot for it. I'm kind of like my grandparents. I don't push it on people a whole lot. I do wear my caps, and I do try to uh, let people know. I even went to the trouble. I don't have as colorful a shirt as I see you wearing a lot, but if you'll notice, my shirt is red, white, and blue.
I see that. Yeah.
I'm, I, my blood might run a little bit red, white, and blue.
Amen. Hey, I want to talk about your grandson once again. I think that's a great example of what we can do, and I think how we turn the next generation around is one youth at a time, one young adult at a time, one kid at a time. We see a young man taught to respect his elders, taught to respect his grandfather, and he, of his own volition, he salutes his veteran grandfather. It's a sign of respect. And did you catch what happens here? They salute and then they hug. So they show honor, they show respect, and they cement the bond of family by showing affection and love. And as we're mentoring this next generation, I think that's really important. And I thank you for sharing that example because it's a great example of how a young person, like the young lady in the key wanting a flag on it, this young man saluted, hugged his grandfather, went to school and said, "I'm proud of my grandfather. He's a veteran." And we need to get back to that point once again. I think one of the organizations I want to mention is Trail Life. Trail Life is was started, and we we were going to do an interview with the founder of Trail Life, and we kind of got tied up a little bit in scheduling. But we're going to be putting some more things about Trail Life out there. I think it's a great organization. It's like the Boy Scouts or the Cub Scouts and Webelow. I was a Cub Scout Webelow when I was a kid, but the scouting organization has gone a little bit woke in their values. Trail Life is kind of like the Boy Scouts meets church camp, and they teach Christian values in a kind of Boy Scout setting. You teach them how to be citizens, you teach them how to camp, survive in the wild, and you teach them godly values. And it's an organization we're going to be talking about a lot here in the future. It's called Trail Life. Uh, if you're a church, or especially a church, it's designed for churches like the Mormon Church used to oversee a lot of the Boy Scouts when I was growing up. I think Christian churches need to embrace organizations like Trail Life for a couple of reasons. We need to teach them um, godly values. We need to teach them how to be citizens. And we need to look for ways to go. Now, people in church might be offended what I'm going to say next. Please hear me out before you cast judgment. But we need to go what I call beyond the pulpit. Now, what do I mean by that? We need to reach out into society. We need to take the values of the church and go into the community. Jesus said, "Go into all the world and make disciples of all nations." So, with organizations like Trail Life, you're teaching kids godly values, how to survive in the wild, taking the Boy Scouts back to Christian values. Uh, and so, we need, when I say beyond the pulpit, look for ways, programs, activities, ways that we can engage teach family values, teach Christian values, other than the pulpit on Sunday morning, which is important. I have a pulpit on Sunday morning, and I preach from that every Sunday. And we need to continue to do that, to preach the Word of God. But we also need to make uh, teaching and rearing and mentoring and educating about Christian and family values a 7 day a week project, and we do it with organizations like Trail Life. But thank you for sharing that example of your grandson saluting you and then hugging you. I think that's a perfect example and illustration of how we can take one young man and then two young men and then three young men and then 100 young men and then 1,000 young men and see how it grows and grows and grows and grows. That's how we save the country. And we shouldn't just look at it and say it's a lost cause. There's just too many. The whole generation, young people are just uh, the devil's munchkins and they're going to hell in a handbasket. There's nothing we can do. Yes, there is. Back to the scripture. Do not weary in doing good, and all things are possible with God. So I think we need to really revisit family values and Christian values and say, we are going to work. We are going to, I don't want to use the word fight, but we are going to mentor our young people. We're going to make a case for this young generation about why we love this country. It's more than just an angry white man that's angry at the next generation. There's things we're concerned about, and there's reasons we're concerned about it, and look for ways to have a discussion with these young people on how to turn the tide and bring them to our way of thinking, because we care about the next generation and the generation beyond that and the generation beyond that. Socialism, communism has never worked anywhere, ever. Margaret Thatcher said socialism dies when you run out of other people's money. We've talked a lot about that. We'll continue to talk a lot about that in the future. And I'll point also, speaking of the military, we look at the recruiting goals, the quotas, the numbers of people signing up for military service under Donald Trump has skyrocketed because we have young people that want to fight for America, that want to serve America, and that want to be in a military that's led by a commander in chief that believes in America. He's not perfect, I understand that, but it's really interesting to see that the numbers of people signing up for military service has skyrocketed under the Trump administration and under the Biden administration. We were seeing stories about people reciting coming out poems on the aircraft carrier. And that's not the kind of atmosphere that type A young people are going to sign up for when they want to fight for America and American values. So we need to continue to support the military. We need to continue to support the cause and just look for ways to, to reach this next generation. And then, but every day we get up, say, you know what? We had a saying here once, kind of a joke, but it became kind of a mission statement. Uh, I'm saving America today. What did you do? And I said that kind of as a flippant remark at when somebody asked me what I was doing that day. And I thought about it and I thought, you know what? I think that's kind of a battle cry, if you will. Uh, I'm trying to save America today. What did you do? And we did that as kind of a call to action. And we'll probably continue to use that in the future. Um, yeah, but thanks for your grandson. He's a real model of what we need to have our next generation be.
Well, I'm really encouraged about that because of so much of it, it he has seems to have absorbed it on his own. But when you talk about love and respect, the one thing that I'm convinced you can't really have love if you don't respect somebody. I
Mhm.
almost think it should be respect and love. Say it. The respect has got to be in there, and and one of the things I used to even say, I wanted both of my sons uh, to love and respect me, but if I had to choose and I could only have one, I wanted to be respected. You know, I
Yeah.
don't mean that I expected to be treated uh, unreasonably. I didn't want to be uh, raised up on a pedestal or anything like that, but I wanted my sons to respect me and know what I stood for. And I never set them down and preached to them, gave them little mini courses or anything. I
Yeah.
just tried to do what my grandfather did. I tried to just set an example. And the on one occasion, uh, the, when there was uh, big issue, politically, everybody was making a big deal about racism, and if, the fact that some people would say that I was extensionally racist just because I was white, and my
Yeah.
son, the father, my grandson, said, he's in his 50s, and he said, in my entire life, I never heard you or saw you say or do anything racist. I said,
Right.
yeah, but I get the blame for it or the credit for it in some cases from people. But the real biggie is, to me, there's got to be some respect, whether respect for uh, your elders, for your parents, and be appreciative of what your parents have done for you, because my father, biological father, was not a father to me. So maybe I have a little more of an appreciation for parents than some people. But one of the things too, we're talking about kind of my wife's son-in-law is the one that flagged for me and first sent me the images about that temporary monument to people that have served in our country that I sent to you. Uh,
Uh-huh.
uh, it was my son-in-law that actually sent uh, that to me and made me even aware that existed, and and uh, and uh, my sons and my uh, youngest brother, they were all kind of impressed that my name was actually retrievable off of that database, off of that monument, and I recognize I'm just one out of 41 million names on that thing, but
Yeah.
my name is there.
Yeah.
I've only got one 41 millionth of it, but at least, again, I feel like I've tried to do my part. I've done part of my part anyway, and uh, but it is interesting the that some family seems to appreciate that kind of thing, and uh, and and hopefully it'll spread a little bit beyond uh, family, friends, acquaintances, and stuff. I try to share a few things like that uh, with people, but I really uh, not sure that some of the stuff really gets um, it doesn't get spread out and sent to enough people. A lot of people don't ever see it. They're not even aware that some of the good stuff. And
Amen.
but you made a really big deal on one of our interviews about names. We got to remember the names. Well, there's
Yes.
41 million names out there, and everybody that's a, a friend, an acquaintance, a family member, if they know of somebody, regardless of what war, yeah, there's a lot of names, uh, in early years, in the Revolutionary War years, I'm sure is there's not much of a record except for limited. Uh, but at least somebody has gone to some effort to try to make sure somebody can remember your name. Yeah, I remember that you've always kind of reinforced that remembering people's names,
Yeah, it's
not just
important.
remembering a vague person or numbers of people, but there is that one individual name. Remember him. You know, you it's important.
Yeah, one of the story I constantly remember is when I was talking to a mother whose son was tortured in Iraq, Afghanistan. She said, "Please tell me my son died for something," and it just really set with me. It really ingrained it into my thinking that, hey, this is important. And you just kind of wonder if a young man like in the Vietnam War was was bleeding out in a rice paddy and knowing that he would never go home again, just hoping that his death meant something. Um, and we need to remember each of those each of those individual names. One of the projects, I don't know whether we've talked about it. Excuse me. I've been doing a lot of talking today. That we've started with Operation Eagle's Wings and our platforms, and we'll probably never complete this, but we want to start it anyway. You've heard of the Vietnam Wall and the walls of honor where the names are etched in the walls. So we've started an audio channel that's a 24/7 audio stream listing the names, and the goal is we'll probably never reach it, but our goal is to verbally speak the name of every person who died in combat action for the United States of America. And I think we've got several hundred Vietnam um, soldiers that were killed in action. We list their name and the rank and where they were killed. And we have this on this continuous loop, and we'll have it on our websites because it's really important we remember the names. We remember the names of those who died in rice paddies in Vietnam, who died in the sands of Iwo Jima, who died in the World War II in the Battle of the Bulge, just knowing that they would never see home again, but just hoping that they gave a sacrifice that meant something. So that's one of the projects that we're doing. One of the things that I was thinking about when you were talking about spreading family values, spreading family values, just had a thought. Remember in COVID when we had these super spreader events, they were concerned about people coming together, and it was a super spreader event where we spread COVID. And so they were trying to stop that from happening because it would be a quote super spreader event. Wouldn't it be cool if we could make the spreading of family values a good super spreader event? Now, what I mean by that is let's see what we can do to make this contagious. Let's see what we can do to make this, hey, we love each other. People, I think, are motivated by love. People want to be loved, and I think people deep down inside want to love others. If we make family values a super spreader event in a good way, make it contagious. And I'm just kind of spitballing here, and just kind of ideas are just kind of just shooting from the hip, if you will. But I just kind of spoke to me a little bit about, hey, let's let's spread family values and let's make it contagious. Your
No,
thoughts?
I think it's you're hitting on something that's r really really important. It's just sometimes you share things with people, just like if my son-in-law had not sent me those images, and it just so happened his mother and father both were in the army in World War II, and 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 it and he had looked up his father's name on that website, on that database and
Uh-huh.
stuff. And but if he hadn't shared that with me, and what was interesting, he has two nieces. He has no children. He has, but he has only two nieces, and one of his nieces actually was the one that sent that thing to him about that temporary monument uh, to people who had served in the military. So it was passed along by family, one, two, three, four, five,
Yeah.
and then I sent it out to two or three people, and and I think that's probably to me is the best advertisement. I mean, I know you're involved in business and retail business and stuff, and to me that is uh, you've always heard that word of mouth is the best and it's the cheapest, but it's the best uh, and most trustworthy um, advertisement that you can get. Well, word of mouth for uh, our trying to get across our attitude about family and our country. It's the way it is, one person at a time.
Hmm.
It's that old thing about, um, you know, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time, right?
Yeah.
I know you've heard that, but one of the things too, you was talking about some people kind of give up even on the voting or stuff because they say, well, there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
We can't win. Now I played football a little bit in high school. Now I wasn't really good at it. I was too small and too slow, uh, but uh, we actually won a game one time, and we won it. The clock had gone down to zero. The gun we used guns then to enter in the game, and the gun had went off. We were behind 3 points. It looked like we had lost the game, but we held on. We held on. Well, there was a penalty on the final play. We had a choice: the penalty or the play. Well, of course, we're going to take the play. And there's no clock running, but we get one more play. My best friend, who was a fullback, carried the ball across the goal line, and we won the game. Even after I mean, it looked like a done deal. It looked like impossible, but we won the game after the clock went to zero and after the gun went off. So a lot of times it's keeping on, even to the last second is a worthy goal, you know. It, and if nothing else, my attitude's always been even if you can't win, to lose by less is a worthy goal. You know, I think it is. I'd rather lose by one touchdown as to lose by three or four. That it's so uh, there's no sense in necessarily giving up there, and that's my number one uh, example of when not giving up actually paid off. And I have been several times in my life when it that kind of thing made it a difference. You just do what you're supposed to do, regardless. There's no such thing as well. There's no way. There's always a way. It may not be real uh, visible to you right at the moment, but things have a way of rewarding those. You know, uh, there's they say good things cometh to he who waiteth, as long as he worketh like hell while he waiteth. Well, in some cases it may not be work, but whatever it is, as long as you keep trying while you waiteth, you keep trying. You don't just wait; you're actually trying. Uh, I know I'm uh, trying to say some wise things in a very corny sort of way, but
No, but I think they're very wise. I love the analogy about the football game. Just don't sit on your hands. It's like, oh well, there's nothing I can do. Deer in the headlights. Yeah, there's something you can do. There have been battles that have been won by soldiers simply refused to give up. Their game's been won, and you gave one example of that about how a game was won by players that simply refused to give up. There was no quit in them. They just kept on keeping on, and that's what it takes to win the game.
Well, it's been times in my life that I got knocked down pretty hard, not just in football and stuff, but in life in general. And my first wife didn't really understand why that I kept on keeping on and why I kept getting back up and why I kept starting over. And I mean, she was glad I did, but she didn't understand it. Well, I was kind of like my grandfather, I just watched him, one foot in front of the other for thousands and thousands of steps around and around that field, and it it's just to me not giving up. Sometimes you got to be a realist, but at the same time, there's no sense in not still not trying. And I really believe that a lot of times will come back to you because, like I said, you may not even win the game, but it's still better to lose by less. It really
There,
is.
yes, it is. Now, before we started this interview, you said that you wanted to talk about family issues. Was that personal family issues or family issues about those that served in the military? And
Well, like I said earlier, I used
uh
the wrong word when in issues. I should have said connections because
okay,
what I wanted to do was show that there's a lot of family connection. It wasn't just with my family. I know that it applies to millions of families that uh, a lot of our appreciation for our country, our patriotism, appreciation for military service comes from family connections. It's from family attitudes and stuff. And uh, and like I said, my uh, ma- maternal grandfather's family had plenty of uh, of connections as far as serving their country and stuff, and they they would have never dreamed. All of them now are dead. All of those uncles are dead. Uh, they didn't die in the war. They almost did, but a couple of them. But they, it, I think they would be appalled, you know, uh, at some of the stuff that's going on, people that's disrespecting our country. It gets back again to that respect. I really think uh, that even love, whether it's love for your family, love for a country, love for your parents, it's got to start with some respect. If you don't have any respect, you can say you love somebody. That's easy to say,
mhm.
but do you really? If you can't show them respect, then I don't. I don't believe it's a very shallow love at least. So yeah, that's what I was really trying to get at. Is I felt like there's a lot of connection between uh, patriotism and family. You know that if
Mhm.
you speak if you don't understand and love family, how can you really love your country? How can you really uh, feel like that you're a part of something? Uh, to me, the, everybody always preaches teamwork, teamwork, and
Yeah.
and a lot of times it's just a lot of corporations have these team building exercises
Oh
and
yeah.
stuff, but the family is the ultimate team. And sometimes it's not successful. Sometimes it breaks down. But like I said, with my family, now I had my grandfather and grandmother had 10 kids, uh, six boys and four girls, and my mother's was the only failed marriage, and I had nine sets of aunts and uncles to look to see how a marriage really should be, even though my mother and father were divorced and my father was not part of my life. My uncles became very important to me, not quite as important as my grandfather. So, yeah, that I used the wrong word and I said issues. They're really, I'm just talking, I meant to talk about connections. So I wanted to clarify that a little bit. Thanks for helping
Sure.
me there.
Oh, no worries. I think the theme of the show, it's kind of interesting. I think it's a God thing where sometimes when we start a show, it's like, okay, let's start talking and see what happens. I think the theme on this show, this interview, this particular uh, Zoom session is about family and is about patriotism and is about how we connect the two and how we save both by interconnecting them and working together to improve family relations and save America. Yeah, I think that'd be good. Do you have anything that we haven't talked about you want to visit about?
Well, one of the things I did want to
Sure.
mention it. I don't want it to be a central part of this thing, but you see quite a bit of stuff about fraud and stuff about different programs and stuff. On you see that on the news quite a bit. Uh, but one thing that I'm amazed at, uh, there's a lot of people, for example, are not willing to participate in the military. They're not willing to participate in any kind of community activities. It's all negative stuff. But when it comes to fraud, uh, one of the things, the I don't know if you're aware of it, but when I first joined the Vietnam Veterans of America, which I'm a life member, and I'm a life member of American Legion, but the one of the issues was there's people out there, our DD 214, Department
Uh-huh.
of Defense Form 214 is our discharge papers. It's what summarizes our service and initiates a lot of our benefits and stuff. People were actually falsifying DD 214s, claiming to be military and they had not served. They was getting a hold of copies and whiting them out, I guess, typing over them, then recopying them. And of course, with the computers and stuff now, you can really do a lot of
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. But it always amazed me that people, and we've even got elected officials and stuff that take credit for military service that they did not serve. You know, they lied. I mean, as simple as that. But
Stolen valor.
but I'm always uh, I had my youngest uncle who served in the Navy in the Pacific during World War II. He had this expression he always used all the time. He was talking about some people. He said, they are liars, and the truth isn't in them.
Yeah.
I think he actually used the word ain't, and the truth ain't in them, And but I noticed that even to more and more recently, if you go to a restaurant that gives a military discount, well, now they require you to show a military ID, a VA ID at least, which I'm not active military, but I do have a VA ID, and you have to show this, and the manager has to see it before they'll give you your discount. And it's because people will lie. People will actually steal, or you can go online and buy uh, caps, that says you're a veteran, and 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 because they want to be able to get the free discount, and you think, wow, really over something? I mean, we're only talking like 10%. It pays the
Right.
sales tax basically, and uh, but I just find it interesting that there's people out there that uh, I mean, they want so much stuff for free, but they don't want to earn it. They don't want to uh, they want the benefits of it and stuff. But that that pretty much covered most of the stuff, Dave, that I wanted to cover. The main gist of my thing today is because it is the 250th
Yeah.
anniversary, and it really is a big deal. You know, uh, you know,
Yeah.
I pray and hope that we make it to 300. You know, I mentioned before about being buried in the uh, national cemetery, and that hopefully it having my name on a stone and it being there for as long as our country lasts. Well, I'd like to think it's going to last a lot longer than just a few more years, and that
Yeah.
if you don't have some pride and respect for our cemeteries, for the veterans who really, in a lot of cases, some of them are buried after the war, but some of them they gave their life in the war. And again, it goes back to that one word. I feel like so much of anything we've got, we can always uh, attach that word respect to it, and I really that's the gist of when I see you doing those little short casts on the YouTube and
Yeah.
stuff, trying to get our country respect, and I like that, and I salute you for it. I really
Well,
do.
thank you, sir. I salute you and I appreciate your service. Speaking of liars, the phrase comes from 1 John 2:4, um, which states that anyone who claims to know God but does not obey his commands is a liar, and the truth is not in him. So the phrase that was it your grandfather used
No, no, it
actually
was
came
my
from uncle.
youngest uncle. He was a Navy veteran, and
It actually came
the
from the Bible.
yeah, so he was quoting the Bible. I say I didn't realize that right off. I mean, I know a lot of stuff sounds like the Bible. I had some people at work a few years ago. I've been retired now for several years, but they have mentioned more than one person said, James, you talk in parables. I said, really? She says, oh, yeah, you're always giving examples. You're always uh, telling a little story like a parable.
Right.
And sometimes you reference specifically the Bible. And they said, and I had never realized that they were accusing me of talking in parables. Well, that gives me some credibility, maybe. I don't know.
Well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I do appreciate your service and look forward to talking to you again about veterans issues and American issues uh, and experiences as we all need to work together to save America. And like it's like, hey, I'm trying to save America. What did you do today? I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to our viewers and listeners out there on the various platforms. Is you can't just throw your hands up and say, "Oh well, it's a lost cause." Maybe the next maybe the next leader will have a better idea. No, we're not doing that. We're not going down that road. Uh, I'm trying to save America today. What did you do? And and then making family values a super spreader event in a positive way to mentor young people with organizations like Trail Life, the Christian answer to the Boy Scouts of America. And churches, you need to really look at that. Traillife.com, I think is the website. And we're going to be talking more about that on our various platforms. You're going to be seeing us with some videos out there, and what they're trying to do at Trail Life, and also in our educational effort, looking at American history as we talk to various museums around the country and various people. Like right now, we're doing a session on the Christian originations of America in that our founding fathers were Christians. Are you aware that most of the colonies in the original 13 colonies of America, you had to be a professing Christian, specifically Protestant, in order to serve office in the first in most of the 13 colonies in America. You had to be a Christian or you couldn't serve in public office. And we've came a ways from that, but we're trying to bring up the historic, and we've got documents for it. You can watch it on some of our platforms as we have the two sessions. Last session was 2.5 hours long. And the reason why we're making them so long is we have document after document after document after document, statement after statement, saying that they believe in God and they believe in Judeo Christian values to the extent when America first started, you had to be a Christian in order to serve in public office, period, or you couldn't serve. They went, now people are going to be offended by what I'm going to say next. I don't know whether you're Catholic, but in the early goings on of America, you couldn't serve if you were a Catholic. Sorry, folks. That's just, that's
Well,
history. I'm not trying to rewrite it. I'm just trying to say it.
well, I'm a Southern Baptist, uh, and one of the things when you was talking about the Boy Scouts, when I was in the Boy Scouts, our church was the sponsor of our Boy Scout troop. We we had our meetings uh, in our church, and
Uh-huh.
uh, so our church didn't just show the American flag; they they sponsored our um, Boy Scout troop, which uh, to me it, it seemed the appropriate thing to do at that time. I'm not sure that there's very many churches involved in those kind of programs, but anyway, no, it sounds Dave, everything that you're doing, I do support you, and I hope other people will also. And uh, you, you show a lot of energy and commitment when you're out there, and 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 uh, I definitely appreciate that. I
Well, I,
really
I
do.
appreciate I appreciate when somebody's watching, but no, it's like we're going to save America. I'm going to do everything I can to do this, and we're just one organization of many that are really trying to move this ball forward, to move the needle in a positive direction, to save this country. Because uh, here's another story I'm going to share with you that sometimes I share in illustrations. I don't want to be talking to my grandkids in, let's say, 20 years from now. And meanwhile, all the doors are boarded up and the windows are boarded up, and we're prisoners in our home because we can't go outside because of the crime. I don't want to be in my own home talking to my grandson or granddaughter saying, "This is how America used to be." And we would, like, for example, in Idaho, where I grew up, we'd have the 4th of July. In the summers, we'd have baseball. On 4th of July, we'd have go over to grandma's house and we'd have apple pie under the shade tree. And we'd just have the day off and we'd celebrate America. And in the evening, we'd have the fireworks. Some cities would have parades. And it was just a wonderful thing. Meanwhile, while I'm telling this in this supposed story, that you can hear gunshots and sirens outside and we can't walk outside, and I wouldn't want my grandson or daughter in this situation to turn to me and say, "Gee whiz, Grandpa, I wish we had that kind of country now." I don't want us to ever, ever, ever get to that situation where that happens, where we're telling stories about how America used to be, how we used to celebrate the 4th, how we used to have parades, how we used to be able to play baseball games in the park without fear of rape, rob, or plundering. And we've got to get back to that. I do not ever want to have that conversation with my grandson in the future. Gee whiz, this is what America used to be. Sorry you can't have it now. And have them turn to me and say, "Why didn't you save it for me? I think I kind of would have liked to have lived in that kind of
Mm.
country." I don't want to have that conversation, folks. Another little phrase and you probably heard this, probably know what I'm going to say. Cowboy up, America.
Yeah, I heard you. Uh, well, you have a good evening, and thanks again for letting me share with you, okay?
And we'll be doing this again, all right?
All right.
Okay,
Good
God
evening.
bless.
All right.
This is Street Level America, USA Heartbeat, Operation Eagle's Wings, honoring all who served honorably. Cowboy up, America, and good night.
Good night.